Hello, everyone. I'm Pete English from the Keller Williams office, Market Center 247 in Atlanta. Today, we're going to talk about how to fill out a seller's property disclosure form. And if this is something that's helpful for you, if you'll simply click on the button below, subscribe to the channel. Also, if you'll click on the chime, then anytime there's a new video that comes out, you'll be notified. All righty? Let's get with it. So today, what we're going to talk about is, all right, I've got a deal, I've got an opportunity, and I've got a listing, and now we've got a situation where the seller needs to fill in the property disclosure form, and we'd like to do that through Docusign. So, as you can see my screen here, this is Command, and generally speaking, when you have Command, you either have created an opportunity from within the Opportunities tab here, or you can certainly go to the particular client contact and go to their opportunities also. So if we go to this contact right here, and let's just search for, I think we got somebody named Charles in here maybe. How about Charles Koch? All right. We bring up old Charles. Hopefully we bring up Charles. I'm recording this on a Tuesday, and we all know how Tuesdays work for Command. We'll try Mr. Koch again. All right, so here's Charles, and all of our contact information is on the left. And notice over here in the timeline, we have nothing in the timeline, but if I click on Opportunities, I do have an opportunity right here, all right? So I'm going to click on this opportunity, which will take us into the Opportunities tab of Command. I could also come over here and get there the same way. So we'll click right here. We'll go into this particular opportunity. Now, I've previously created this opportunity. The name of the opportunity is Charles Koch, 133 Peachtree Street, and here is the detailed information I have about it. Well, I'm going to click on Documents. And if you'll notice that right here it says Sync Transaction and Go to Transaction. The reason these two buttons are here is because I've previously created the transaction from within Command, which created a room in Docusign. So the easiest way to go directly to this room in Docusign is to go from within Command. I could certainly open up another tab up here and go directly into Docusign, but this is certainly another way of doing it. So we'll click on Go to Transaction. If you'll notice, another tab opens at the top of my screen, and it's going directly to Docusign. Now, generally, all right, sorry the item was not found. Well, that's a first. So let's go back over here to the dashboard and see if we can find that particular opportunity. I don't see that opportunity. Oh, you know why? Because I'm logged in as someone else. Let's log out right here. We're going to log in as Pete. We'll log in right here. And we should be able to find, here's the room right here, okay? That was a shortcut. Just disregard all that. I was logged in with another agent helping them out and forgot to log out. So now I'm in Docusign. Notice my tabs up here. I could get rid of some of these other things, but I was in Command. Now I'm in Docusign, and I'm in the respective room that I want to be in, okay? So within Docusign, if I come over here in this particular room and I go to Documents, I have the ability to pull all the documents that I may need in the future. I can pull them into this room so that I can use them. All righty. So what I'm specifically looking for is a property disclosure form. And as you can see right here, I do not have the property disclosure form. If you don't like looking at the thumbnails, you can always click right over here in the top right corner and get a line list of all these documents by clicking the list view. Here is a list view of all of the same documents that I was looking at a while ago when I was in the grid view. Okay, so I'm specifically looking for the property disclosure form, and I don't see the property disclosure form. So let's add property disclosure form. We're going to go to our Docusign Forms library. And we'll look specifically for the folder. There's several ways to go about finding it, but we can go into a forms group so we know generally that when we are selling a listing and we go into the listing forms and disclosures right here, we should be able to find that property disclosure form somewhere in here, which I think is a 301. Let me just type 301 and see what happens. Property disclosure statement. How about that? All right, so we'll click there and we're going to add this document. All righty, so now the document that I'm looking for is in the room, and I can use this document, right now, today, tomorrow, whenever I need it, but I know that it's in my room ready to go. All righty, so I am going to take this particular document, this disclosure statement. I'm going to click on it. And let's see what I can go ahead and pre-populate before I put it in an envelope to send over for signature. So right now, seller, the exhibit, all right, let's just say that I know that's going to be exhibit A, so I'll populate that. I've already populated the street address. All of that came in. Let's see, exhibit statement with offer date. Well, right now we don't have an offer on the property, so I'm not going to fill in this date right here. You can do that on another envelope in the future after you've got someone ready, willing, and able to buy the property. We'll come back down here. Notice that there's no check boxes. So I had an agent say, hey, I wanted to send this to a client, but I couldn't check any of the boxes to get them to sign it. Well, the form is already, quote, templated and ready to go, but this is not where we go to do that, okay? So I'm simply going to scroll down and see if there are any other fields that are highlighted that I need to fill in right now before I prepare this to be sent out for the seller to check all these boxes. It's like, oh my goodness, if I got to check all these boxes, I'm going crazy. Well, guess what? Somebody's got to do it. All right, so the buyer's signature, we don't, in this scenario that I'm explaining right now, I don't have a buyer, right? So I don't need to fill this in. We do know that the seller is Charles Koch, all right, and he's the only seller. So those are really the only boxes that need to be filled in at this time. So I'm going to hit save and close. So I know that my property disclosure form, at least the part that I as the agent need to fill out, has been filled out, okay? The next step is to go to envelopes. We're still in the same room. We're in the Charles Koch 133 Peachtree room. An envelope is nothing, literally, if you think about it as a manila envelope that you need to stuff documents in and to send out, then that's probably a pretty good analogy. So we're going to create a net new envelope. Top right corner where my mouse is, left click one time to new. All right, the name of this envelope can be whatever it wants. Nobody sees this except for you or compliance, if you will. So we'll just say that this is going to be the property disclosure document, all right? Add documents to the envelope. So the document that I want to add, remember we just added a bunch of documents to the room just a few minutes ago. So I want to go specifically and pick out this one document. I'll click on Room Docs. I'll go and I'll find my property disclosure statement, the F301, and I'm going to say Add Selected. All right, so now I have a document that we're getting ready to do something with. But in order to keep going over here to the next button, I still have to put in recipients. When I click the drop-down bucket, it says pre-tagged roles or room participants or manually enter an email address. Well, in our case right here, I'm going to say a pre-tagged role, so I'm going to click on that. And notice that because the form has already been templated, that it already is looking for a buyer 1, a buyer 2, a seller 1, or seller 2. Remember just a minute ago that Charles Koch owns this by himself, so there's only one seller right here, okay? And we could come over here and specifically put somebody's name in here, so Charles is in here already. For the sake of this conversation, let's pretend that I am the seller and I'm going to email it to myself so that we can go into my email and notice how we actually fill out the form as if the seller were receiving this. Okay. So I'm going to add selected. Now, if I had seller 2 and buyer 1 and all this, I can certainly populate all that. But for my discussion right now, I'm only interested in the seller filling out the property disclosure form. Right now, Pete, me, I'm going to be the seller so that you can see what it looks like. So I've added the seller. So I'll click Add Seller. All right. So we've got a document. We've got at least one recipient. And then this is the email subject line, and this is what the recipient will receive. All right, so we're going to say, please fill out and return this seller's disclosure form. How about that? Okay. And then depending on how well you know the seller, you may have some long and drawn out email on what you're supposed to do. And since I can't type, we'll just act like this is me typing and I'm saying something that's very important, and the seller will get a lot out of this. All right. All right. So now we have created the name of this envelope. We have inserted at least one document that we're going to send out. We have named who the recipient or recipients are, and we've created a subject line and an email message. So the next thing that we're ready to do is we're ready to check this form, because as the agent, you want to make sure that all of the forms that you need to have in there are in there. So I am simply going to click the View button real quick to take a look at it. And let's see what we see. All right, remember I put in Exhibit A just a minute ago, and then it's pre-populated the forms with what we have. All right, so that looks pretty good. Everything looks good there. Now we're ready. Is there anything else we need to add? All right, looks pretty good so far. All right, so this is what's going to go out. I'm going to X out of this. And now I'm going to say Next. When I get to the Next button, it's going to think about it for a minute or 2 or 3 or 4. All right, so this gets us to the Edit screen. Now, because I only had one recipient when I named the recipient just a minute ago, over here in the drop-down, I'm only going to have one recipient. In that case, it's going to be me, because I am the seller in our little scenario we're talking about. Here, now, you as the agent have the ability to come in and add more of these widgets if you think you need them in here, okay? So if we wanted to come in here, now notice, you see where these boxes right here are yellow? Because the recipient right here, in this case, Pete, is color-coded yellow. So anything that's yellow, when Pete receives this document, it's going to be his responsibility to fill in all of these boxes. Now, if a particular field was required, then you could come over here and watch what happens to this particular field when I say required. See how it turns it solid color right there? That means that this document will not go any further in our workflow until somebody, meaning Pete, has filled in this required information. So in our case right here, an explanation is optional, so we'll just say we will not make that required. But here are all of the tools that we have the ability to drop in. But since this document has already been pre-templated, you as the agent don't have to worry about filling all this stuff in unless there's something crazy going on that you need to fill in. All right. So what I want to do is I'm going to pull this down all the way to the bottom so that you can see the signature fields. All right. So notice that we do not have a buyer's signature field right here. The reason we don't have that is because we did not define a buyer when we put this document together just a minute ago. Remember, we're very early in the sales process. We need a property disclosure form from the seller we don't really know who the buyer is just yet. So we're a little early worrying about a buyer's signature. However, we do have a place for the seller's signature. All right. And let's just say that I'm a little on the obsessive side and I want this to be in the middle. So there you go. And then I want the date signed to be right over here. All righty. And we don't have a buyer signature number 2 or a seller signature number 2. So we don't really need to use any more of these tools that are at our disposal over here. All right. So this document looks really good. We've double checked to make sure that everything we're looking for is there. And at this point, we're ready to send this to our seller. So I'm going to click send, and away it goes. So now Docusign has just sent an electronic signature notice, if you will, over to our seller, Mr. Charles Koch. But if you further remember in our little scenario just a minute ago, that I'm acting like that I am Charles Koch right now. So let's go over here. Let me see if I can bring my email over here. Notice I have logged into my email and I am looking at this email that just came in, and let's pretend that I'm Charles Koch and this is the email that I'll receive, and it says that please review this document. Remember that long drawn out email that I had put together just a minute ago? So here's the email that I wrote explaining, hey Charles, open this thing up and give me the disclosure on your property. So he opens it up by clicking this yellow button that says Review Document. And oh, by the way, if you guys want to play around with this and email it to yourself, you can create a dummy account and certainly do the same thing that we're doing right here. All right, please read the electronic document signature. I agree. Yeah. So they'll click that and they'll hit Continue. So now here is the document that's ready to be filled out. If we come down here, he keeps scrolling. He goes, all right, what year was the main residence constructed? And we'll say 1999. I don't know why they have these check boxes over here, but that's irrelevant. Is the property vacant? We'll say no. How long has it been since the property was occupied? That's irrelevant also. There are ways to go into it and make this conditional, so if this is no, this doesn't pop up. But obviously when they templated this form, they didn't think of that, so you can simply just go away from it. Is the property or any portion leased? We'll say no. Has the property been designated historic? We'll say no. And then if you wanted to write anything right here, remember I'm the greatest typist in the world, so I'm going to say this building is the greatest building ever, blah, 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 right? Now, what Charles needs to do is he's going to go through here and put all of his disclosure information, and I'm not reading this, folks. I'm just clicking stuff so that you'll have some idea of how it is to fill it out, right? So the seller will fill all of this information out, and then ultimately we'll get to the bottom, or we'll just drag it and get there really fast. Oh, this is what I wanted to show. Remember, this is the bane of a lot of people, is check everything that stays, right? All right, the clothes dryer is going to stay, the washing machine is going to stay, dishwasher is going to stay, garage door is going to stay, all of this stuff is going to stay. Anyway, you'll go in here and check all this, right? Or at least the seller will. So the question that the agent had sent me earlier is, how do you fill out this stuff? And this is exactly how. It's not, they were trying to do it on a previous screen, not understanding that the document has already been templated. All right, remember, I'm playing Charles Koch on TV. So right here, we're going to say sign, and boom, it says my signature, but it would be Charles if Charles is the one that got it. So we're going to adopt that signature, and we'll adopt and sign. Okay. And now all he has to do is click Finish. And if we have filled in all of the required fields, then we're done. Save a copy of your document for a free Docusign account. This is, consumers will fill this stuff out, not really reading it, and then they'll have our own Docusign account. Well, I don't know if that's good, bad, or indifferent, but this is what's going to pop up on the consumer's desktop when they fill this out. I'm going to say no thanks, and now we are done. All right, so that's all there is to it. Hopefully that makes sense, at least from our perspective. You start in Command. From Command, you go into Docusign. In Docusign, you go into the room. In the room, you build all the documents that you need into the room, and then you use envelopes to send each respective document out when it's time to send it out. Okay? That's all there is to it. Hopefully this has been helpful. If you still have questions, you can certainly type in questions below, and I'd be happy to address them. Otherwise, good luck with it. Go sell some real estate, and we'll talk to you next time.